Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton and Karin Bursa here with you on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Karin, how we doing?
We are doing excellent. Thanks
Yeah.
for asking.
And just let us know how gorgeous it is right now in the Metro Atlanta area.
It is so pretty. I wish I was doing this live stream from outside right now. It's gorgeous.
We're going to work on that. That'll be the
Okay.
next wave of production innovation, we promise.
Sounds
But folks,
good.
hopefully it's as gorgeous wherever you are as it is here in Atlanta. And I think the good, cool weather is going to last for a few more days. So we'll see. But today, Karin, I almost called you Greg. Sorry. Today, Karin, it's just a habit. It's just a habit. Today, Karin, we're giving our folks, our global community, more of the good stuff, some of the best stuff. So fresh on the heels of our collaboration with Lora Cecere on the 2021 Supply Chain Insights Global Summit, we're going to be offering another dose, maybe a third dose, maybe a what's the shot that's coming up soon? The booster, extra
shot,
boosters of key takeaways from the summit. So you're not going to miss our conversation with Lora Cecere, the mayor of the summit, and she's brought a special friend, a member, Karin, of what were we calling our virtual family?
VFAM.
That's right. So joining Lora today is Michal Garbacz. My apologies.
Yep.
With Corning. Some folks have been calling him the William Shakespeare of supply chain poetry. So stay tuned for both Lora and Michal's key takeaways today. So, Karin, how excited are you about the conversation?
Hey, I'm really looking forward to it. I enjoyed the conference. I wonder if people really appreciate just how much work goes into producing an event like this. And I know that Lora personally selected each and every speaker and put the agenda together. And then I know certainly the Supply Chain Now team was a big part of producing the virtual side of the event. And I got to tell you, I think that's the toughest thing to do, to produce both an in-person event and a virtual event simultaneously and have it all come together. So congrats to you and the Supply Chain Now team, and a big congrats to Lora Cecere on her 9th Imagine conference.
And all of them have been extremely highly rated. You know, as you would expect, Lora and her team poll the audience, you know, the voice of the customer. In this case, maybe the voice of the summit attendee is very front and center for Lora and her crew. And once again, it has come in with aces. So she should play more poker. She'd win lots of hands. But hey, and today you get to hear from Lora and Michal front and center. So y'all stay tuned for that. Okay. Well, Karin, I got to admit, I messed up the visuals. I know we've got a webinar coming up on October 5th with Varus, and folks, check out that webinar, Stay the Supply Chain. A lot of key takeaways from research they've been doing for months now. You can find a link to join for free in the comments. But also, Karin, really quick before we bring on Lora and Michal, got to share some of your big news as you were recognized recently as one of the leading women in supply chain by Supply and Demand Chain Executive, right?
I was. Thank you so much for that shout out, Scott. I really appreciate that. It's always an honor to be included in, a group of supply chain leaders, and this one is recognizing a number of women in supply chain on a global basis. So big honor, and I want to thank you, the Supply Chain Now team, and a lot of our community. Our community reached out to me and just sent me some quick notes as well, and I want you all to know how much I appreciated that. You're very kind and generous with your comments.
Well, appreciate that. Richly deserved. And congratulations. Look forward to what's next. Also, I got to say, I love that you're wearing red.
Yes.
As Bob is pointing out, every Friday, it's Red Friday, right? Remember everyone deployed as we sit here and enjoy our freedoms to do what we do. We got folks serving uniform at home and abroad, certainly deployed abroad. And we are very grateful and thankful. So, and Bob, welcome today. And on that note, we're going to say hello to a few folks, and then we're going to welcome in the dynamic duo of Lora and Michal. So Kyle Garcia tuned in from Portlandia.
Kyle, it's good to see your name. It's great to have you with us.
Well, Karin, I look forward. I'm putting together a small little panel to present virtually to his one of his associational chapters up there. And Kyle, as you know, is Salt of the Earth people. So we're looking forward to collaborating with Kyle. Let's see here. Natalie Christian's back. Natalie, how are you doing? Tuned in via LinkedIn. Hey, Natalie, I think you're in the Atlanta area. I should know this, but just remind everybody where you are tuned in from. Daria is now in the Atlanta area. He's echoing our comments about the weather here, Karin.
Nice. Good to have you in Atlanta.
So, Daria, let us know how your classes are going at Georgia Tech. I'm sure you are acing all of them. Look forward to connecting with you soon. Let's see, Nathan is tuned in via LinkedIn. Nathan, let us know where you're tuned in from. Welcome. Avinash is tuned in with us via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Barb Sexton. Barb, of course, is part of the AAA team over at Omnia Partners. Barb, congratulates you on your honor. And Barb, we're looking forward to seeing you next week in Miami, which is how Bobby Bowden, rest his soul, used to pronounce the Magic City. Jose is tuned in. Jose, we enjoyed. I think you were part of the conference with us. I think you were sharing some of your key takeaways there. Welcome from Southern California, and hope this finds you well. Okay, and then one final one here. Jean from LA, perhaps Lower Alabama. Jean, welcome. Great to have you here today via LinkedIn, and glad to have everyone else. Natalie says she's tuned in from Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte, where it's nice to have the cool weather there too. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Are in for a treat. Karin, are we ready to bring on our two esteemed guests?
Absolutely. Let's get the party started.
So let's do it. So I want to welcome in Lora Cecere, of course, needs no introduction, but founder of Supply Chain Insights, the mayor of the Supply Chain Insights Global Summit, and much, much more. And Michal Garbacz, my apologies, supply chain strategist with Corning, and of course, one of our leading home run VFAM members. Michal, Lora, good afternoon. How are we doing?
We're rocking.
We are. That's great. That's what we were after. That is what we were after. And as busy as you both are, we had to work through your agents to get you here booked. I know you've got a Learjet waiting on both of y'all to get where you're going after your appearance. Really appreciate y'all both taking some time out with us today.
Yep, glad to be here. And
all
perfect.
Right.
Perfect pronunciation, Scott.
Okay, at least on the front end. I'm working on Garbacz, and I'll get that right. It's
Don't
really
you
important.
love his Southern accent on that Polish name? You got to admit that's classic. And congratulations, Karin, on your award. I've never made that cut, so congratulations.
Oh, Lora, that is a huge oversight. Thank you so much for your kind words. But you've been at the top of the list of a number of others, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you haven't made the list of
I never
women in supply chain.
Yeah, never made that cut. So there's lots of list of women in supply chain, and so it's fascinating for me to see. So
there's only one mayor. There's only one mayor.
So,
I don't know how I got the mayor title, but
Hey, yeah, in my book, you're the trailblazer. So we can add all the other ones onto that.
All right. So, well, on that note, talk about trailblazing, talk about being a pioneer. One heck of a conference that we're going to dive into more here today. A unique conference this year, continued that trend. And we're going to dive into, folks, over the next 50 minutes or so, you're going to hear some of the key takeaways, some of the more key takeaways from the summit. But before we do that, Lora and Michal, let's have a little fun. Lora, you and I are birds of a feather because we're big fans of our bird community, our fellow inhabitants on this great, wonderful terrestrial earth of ours. And today is Bluebird of Happiness Day, which is a new one for me. But a little birdie told me that you're a big bluebird fan. So tell us what folks may not know about bluebirds.
Well, bluebirds are very endangered, and in the old days, they used to basically nest in the fence post of the farms, but because we've taken over the farms, they don't have nesting spots. So every place I've ever lived, I've put in bluebird houses. I've got 15 here in Pennsylvania. I had 45 on the farm, and it's my hope I can help bluebirds to make it.
I love that. And you've sent us pictures. You've offered the best practices as I've been constructing my own community in the backyard. One other thing I learned from Laura, one more thing, is that bluebirds have a particular type of landscape, right? They like more open landscapes, right? Because otherwise birds of prey could be sitting in a tree and swoop down and kind of ruin their day. Is that right, Laura?
Yeah. And, we've got a lot of hawks and, and also you got to make sure the hole is just the right size or other birds will take their houses. So be careful on buying your bluebird houses.
Bluebird houses 2030. We're going to have that conversation very soon, Laura. Okay. So, Michal, we're going to switch gears with you. What we learned, and we should have known this, Karin, last week, as one of the things that Michal will share a little later in the episode. But as we officially learned in a pre-show, Michal is a passionista when it comes to cooking and culinary exploits and experimentation. Is that right, Michal?
That's definitely right.
All right, so let's dive a little deeper. I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to circle around to Laura and Karin here. Of course, one of our favorite topics to talk about here at Supply Chain Now is food. And folks in the skyboxes, including Dr. Rhonda, great to have you here today. We want you all to tell us your favorite desserts because today is National Cherries Jubilee Day. Now, Michal, I'm not sure if I've ever had one of those. I'm not sure if I know exactly what that is, and that's okay. But tell us, Michal, what is your favorite dessert?
That's funny because it's also the case for me. I didn't know what it is, but I've Googled it today and I know. And I'm pretty sure that I have never had one of those. When it comes to my favorite dessert, is definitely cheesecake on the brownie with the raspberry sauce. That's my best one.
Thank you for ruining the next hour and some change. You've made us really hungry now, Michal. But that's perfect. Now, is that something? Are you good at constructing a cheesecake like that?
For that one, I'm only a helper of my wife because my wife is passionate about sweets and cakes. I prefer more
savory.
Exactly, more savory. Yes.
I'm with you. I am with you. And my wife is the guru in the kitchen here for sure. I can barely. Well, what I make, she doesn't like, and so she does all the culinary adventures here. All right. So Michal, thanks for sharing. I want to go to Laura next. So Laura, what is your go-to dessert?
In the fall, it's apple crisp.
Ooh.
So I'm going to be making some apple crisp because it's fall weather.
With ice cream or no ice cream?
Can't have ice cream. I'm training for my next triathlon. From looking at the pictures from the Global Summit, I got a stomach to lose. So I'm starting back on my training. We all have plenty of strides to make in that journey, especially the last 18 months, right? As we've been hanging out in the house for a lot more than we're used to. But apple crisps, I got to have ice cream. I can't eat apple crisp without ice cream. But I want a picture from your weekend cooking exploits. Karin, all right, what's your
favorite dessert? It's going to be carrot cake with cream cheese icing.
Okay, all right.
So that's it. My wedding cake was a carrot cake with cream cheese icing.
So you're serious. You're serious carrot cake lover, huh? Okay, all right. I can't say that we're birds of a feather there. I've never met a carrot cake that I really liked. But maybe Michal or Michal's. What's your wife, Michal? What's your wife's name?
Oh, it is Asha.
Asha. So maybe we haven't had Asha's carrot cake yet. So we'll circle back on that on a future episode. Rhonda loves apple crisps. Let's see here. Rhonda could share her recipe. Oh, I think that's her creamy cheesecake recipe, which is a knockoff of the Cheesecake Factory. So share that recipe, please. That would be wonderful. And the rest of y'all, let us know if you want to comment on the birds, on the bluebird angle, or if you want to comment on dessert. We'll take those throughout today's conversation. Okay, I should mention one more thing. We ate Wednesday night at Little Alley in Roswell, Georgia, and it was my first time there. It was absolutely delicious. And Michal, Laura, and Karin, I love creme brulee. I could eat them by the bucket, and it was delicious. So, Laura, not a creme brulee fan?
Not a creme brulee, friend.
Okay, Karin. Yeah, up.
I with a cup of coffee, a little creme brulee, I'm good.
Oh man, and Michal, how about you?
Yeah, I love them. I love them.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. All right. So, Karin, I guess we've got to leave the bird and the food discussion. Where are we going next?
You're making me hungry. So first of all, Lora, congratulations on your 9th conference.
Thank you.
I have, a little point of view on just how much work goes into these events, and you are personally involved in every detail of the event, from selecting speakers and putting the agenda together. So congrats on that. I know that, you strive to have a very different experience, also a different agenda, different experience. Let's start with what your favorite takeaways were from the 2021 Imagine conference.
I think I have 3. One was how much harder it was to put on this conference because of the supply chain. The first printer that I got was refurbished. It didn't work. Couldn't buy a printer from any of the normal big box stores. Finally found a printer, and it was 3 days late. Didn't get any of the supplies on time. Hurricane Ida ripped through Pennsylvania, flooded my basement. 40 of the attendees went from in-person to online. And so, as you know, you always guarantee to the hotel a certain number of meals. And, Supply Chain Now was very agile to accommodate them. It was just hard. Hardest I've ever put on. The second was how important social media is to reach the audience I'm trying to reach. So I'm going to use Michal as an example. I didn't know Michal, a year ago, Michal?
Yeah.
And he read a blog post, and he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he was at Corning, and he liked, kind of the innovation that I was driving. And I brought him into the fold, and it's that kind of reach that I'm trying to basically utilize to get the people that can learn from the past to unlearn. What I find in traditional supply chain conferences is we are going through the same discussions, and the SVPs think they know it all, and they take all the oxygen out of the air, and it's the new open-minded folks like Michal that are reading the research, that come to the table hungry to do things differently, that really, really generates, all my energy. And it's so good to have him here. And he's an example of social media reach, because he lived in Poland. I had worked with Corning, but I hadn't worked with him. He came on, he had a great time with the VFAM on Supply Chain Now, and we were able to make it work. So
hey, Lora, really quick. He was also like the star of the show. I think he's going to have a sitcom deal when we're done here. So we'll see. It was a highlight, really.
Yeah. And I guess the third thing is how much I think this concept of extreme networking has value. The concept of the conference is that we don't know the answers. Together, we're going to figure them out, and we're building a guiding coalition to drive change. So unlike other conferences that are very focused around lead generation and sponsorships and technologists, giving the answers, what I do is I populate the stage with innovators, and then I have small group discussions to raise it up, have visual facilitators to raise it up. I have a lot of activities to raise it up, and Supply Chain Now did a great job of the online to really drive a difference, because we're stuck in our traditional thinking, our traditional ways, and we think we have the answer for supply chain excellence, and we don't.
So well put. I got to share this, which I'm sure will resonate with each of y'all. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Kevin L. Jackson, you mentioned the guiding coalition. One of the things he mentioned is the guiding coalition needs to lead, not manage. That was a big theme, part of that discussion around the guiding coalition. Okay. So, Lora, thanks for your top 3. I know we're going to have a lot more, but Karin, we're also going to pick Michal's brain too, right?
Yeah. I want to hear what Michal took away from the event. What was your top takeaway?
Yeah, maybe I will challenge myself and also invent top 3. The first one, I should start with I was joining that conference first time virtually, and it was really great. And I'm not saying that because Scott has pronounced my name correctly, not at all.
Although he pronounced it incorrectly a couple of times, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Throughout
that's right.
throughout the 3 days, and I feel
He had
terrible
to
now.
unlearn to relearn. So
Right.
Yeah, perfect. But we've got plenty of the shows in that conference, plenty of presentations and the content. And sometimes when you are in person, you really are taking some of the items that are close to your heart. And when we are having Scott, Greg, and Karin there discussing together between each other, and also we were having our VFAM putting a comments, I really have taken much more of it because of that exchange of information and ideas than I would in person. So it was a great experience, first and really great. The second thing, and this would be directed exactly to the conference. So we were discussing between what to standardize and where to innovate. I've put a little bit twist to it because I think this is really great topic for a discussion. But knowing my experience, I would put where do we fight for a standard and not bypass it by some kind of external solutions, and where do we innovate? And on that, I think it was Bharat that was saying that we can start with a smart factory and go to smart operations. And I was thinking to myself, can we bypass it? Are those smart operations doable without smart factory? How much you can, let's say, invest in, and where you can make those innovations there. And the third one that I've got is probably about the last presentation about the leadership and the idea about the college teams. I mean, think about college teams and competitions, and they are good on execution of the fundamentals. And this is something that at my job, I would like to be focused on. Okay, so what are those fundamentals that I can be really perfect on achieving that makes me that are making a progress for my company? So those three.
Wow.
Wasn't Daryl Edwards' story about the coach that helped people put their socks on right incredibly powerful?
Yeah, that's right.
If we focus on the fundamentals, we don't get blisters on our feet.
Right. That one. And Daryl also spoke about how he got a piece of feedback from someone that worked for him years ago. And part of the feedback was, you always took care of us. And that simple piece of feedback, Daryl spoke about how important that was to him, how meaningful it was to him. But there's a leadership lesson just right there, because in this day and age, and certainly in these crazy times we're going through, the needs of folks that work for you can be completely radically different than traditionally what they are. And it's really important, I think, as leaders, as all of us here and folks in the skyboxes, to not let that be in our blind spot. So Daryl was a home run, Laura.
Thanks. I picked him for his humility. And, when I first met Daryl, we were in school together, and, he told me what he did. And I just sat back and thought, wow, so many SVP COOs you just can't approach because they've got this, bigger than big attitude. But I love the fact that he is so humble and cares for his people. And I actually did a podcast with some of the people that work for him about working for Daryl. And I'm hoping that sets a new precedent for leaders to be humble and to really focus on servant leadership.
I love that. Let's take a couple of quick comments. And by the way, Daryl's with Lazy Boy.
Lazy Boy.
And we're big fans of his products.
Oh,
too.
Baby. COVID-20. Lazy Boy. Yeah.
All right. So Jose shared, going back to desserts. I cannot pronounce that. I've heard of that, though. I can hear it pronounced. But Jose, tell us what goes into that dessert that you shared there. Rhonda's a big Cardinal fan, talking birds since forever. That doesn't surprise me because Rhonda loves, if y'all seen her pictures, loves hiking out there in Arizona. It's gorgeous. Let's see here. And she also says, really hate to hear about some of those things you talked about. It was punch after punch. And of course, Ida was such a man, that storm just kept ravaging from the coast, up through the Northeast. As Leah says, this conference showed me how important hosting platforms are to add value to the experiences. Great job hosting and engaging the virtual attendees. I appreciate that, Azalea. But I should add to that, Laura and Michal and Karin, one of my favorite parts, and we should come to expect it because we've seen Laura in action plenty of times. But Laura, when folks wrapped up when those hand-picked presenters wrapped up their presentations, they couldn't say, all right, I'm going back to sit down. No, they had to face Laura in some really frank Q&A. It wasn't white glove time. And that was, while I enjoy the presentations, those frank questions, like when you asked with the mattress, what company, Sleep Number, right?
Sleep Number, yeah.
So Sleep Number came up, gave a home run presentation, and the conversation both there in person and online was talking about kind of how they structure compensation. Laura just said, "Tell us how does compensation work?" And you don't hear those type of exchanges in many places. But Laura, talk to us how important those exchanges are after each presentation.
Oh, I think they're really important because they are the on-ramp for the group discussion, whether it's online or in the room itself. Because you're taking down the barriers, you're not having the yada yada, pat on the back, feel good conversation. You're really hitting the rubber. And if you remember that Sleep Number presentation, I slid in because we had a virtual failure on the Western Digital presentation. So she didn't have any idea what I was going to ask her. And wasn't she gracious on the stage with no preparation to tell me their metrics, how they measure, how they bonus, and how they align. And they are the most customer-centric case study I have encountered.
Wow. So Karin, as great as that compliment was from Laura earlier, man, Sleep Number. We're going to have to take a clip of that and send it your way. All right. So what I want to do, I want to share this. So Avanesh has a question. And, one of the things we spoke a lot about throughout the 3 days was, of course, the next generational usage of analytics. And Laura, I can't remember the quote I snagged from you earlier, but if y'all would, let me find this question. And if y'all would just offer any thoughts that come to mind. Bear with me 1 minute here. Okay. Avanesh says, how much data or which data analysis course or training or you name it, do you think would be helpful when it comes to purchasing or procurement careers or current practitioners? Michal, let's start with you maybe, then we'll go around the horn. Any thoughts come to mind with what Avanesh is asking about?
Yeah, so this topic is close to my heart, but I would really start with the metrics. I would start with your own garden, study the metrics and how the company is defining them. If there is a central document that is defining all of the metrics and how company measures success, that's perfect. But that's not always the case, as we know. So start with that, understand it, and think about how to plan for them. Because if you are planning for the metrics, it brings you to completely different level. So, for example, take on case something like overall equipment efficiency. If you are reporting it only for the analytics purposes, it's useless. But once you are taking it for the planning of the headcount, for example, for next year, and then you need to really report and see how you are doing with overtime, it brings you other level. I know this is not a purchasing example.
It still applies though.
Yeah.
I love that. And spoken like a true, I'm going to make up a word here, culinarista with starting in your garden. I love that, because folks are looking for like that off the rack solution. But if it's not right for their business, it's not right for their business. Laura, any comments here?
Well, I would encourage everyone to think about what is supply chain excellence. Yeah. And what has happened in the last decade is procurement is focused on procurement efficiency and throwing the supply chain out of balance by being very focused on extending time to pay and a lot of laborious processes. And I can give you lots of case studies. And I would encourage you to take courses in open source analytics. And as you do that, think about the questions you need to ask and the use of the techniques to not really deliver efficient procurement or how quickly do you pay or how you do payables, but how effectively you serve the organization. And that kind of procurement leadership and the use of analytics is really critical for supplier development, corporate social responsibility, fair labor, fair ethics, and really help us with the next generation of procurement, because in the last decade, procurement's gone backwards, not forwards.
You know, I don't want to beat up on anyone at all, Karin, but these procurement onboarding processes, I mean, it has become such a headache. Such a headache. You got systems aren't talking to each other. You got information that's already submitted, but they come back asking for you again. And it's sensitive information, it's bank account numbers and the like. Things got to get better. So Laura, you may well be right there. Karin, I'd love to get your take on anything you want to add to Avanesh's question and Michal and Laura's responses. And of course, some of your key takeaways from the summit as well.
Oh, sure. So Avanesh, first of all, I like what Laura just said. Start with the end in mind. Understand the question and also understand what good looks like. And that's going to help you to identify the data to be used or the techniques to access that data. I'm also going to use Laura's book title, which is Metrics That Matter. Figure out what matters the most, because you can, do analysis paralysis. You can have so many metrics that you're spending more time looking at that than understanding what they're telling you and taking action based off of the outcomes of those metrics. So stay focused on the business problem to be solved, and then pull in the data for that. I'll just really quickly, two favorite things from the Imagine conference. The first was Jane Kaiser's presentation, and Jane is with Bear Science Corp. And Laura, I loved just how candid she was.
She's so real.
Just straightforward, honest. Talked a little bit about some of the really specific challenges that they've had, but also, Michal, to your point on the topic of understanding what to standardize and what to innovate. So she wove those into the presentation that she did. And I thought that really got the conversation and just dropped some of the barriers in the audience and stuff, and just lots of idea sharing, I think, came out of that.
Agreed. Hey, really quick on Jane, one of the things we picked up that she shared was how Industry 4.0 isn't just revolutionizing the current state of the business and operations, but how are we growing? That was a well-received point. And Jane, of course, also spoke about the need to, the typical rule of thumb is you train 10% of the time, Karin. She challenged that and said 20. It may be as much as 20, right?
20%. That's mind-blowing. 20% commitment to training is a game changer, I'm sure, in the industry. So it'll be interesting to see the step change improvements that we're going to be able to observe as a result of that kind of investment in their organization and improving, just day-to-day practices as well.
Wonderful. Anything else? I know there's plenty else, but Karin, anything else you'd like to share with your key takeaways?
Yeah, on the topic of keeping it real, I thought, Laura, the presentation from Mars, was it Allison Hatfield? In the area of demand planning. Again, talk about keeping it real. I think that she gave some real practical approaches and insights into how demand planning, how these planners are interacting with the business as a whole, and spoke to the fact that one thing we know in demand planning is you're always going to have forecast error. It's a forecast. It's a prediction of the future. But the goal there is to work in collaboration with the teams that you're supporting or the business initiatives that are underway. And I love the fact that she said a little appreciation goes a long way, or something to that effect, that they're working hard. It's not to point fingers at an individual or a new product introduction or anything along those lines, that everybody needs to stay focused on the desired outcome is to serve, in this case, the consumer, right? And make sure that those products are available for the consumer when and where they want them.
Well said. Laura, please respond.
Don't you think it's amazing, Karin, that we've been in the business of building planning systems for 3 decades and we haven't served the user? 78% of people use Excel spreadsheets. Here's Allison. She's worked at many major consumer products companies, has the most advanced technology, and she talked openly how we've missed the mark on serving the planner as a user of software. And I think we've got to rethink work, because we've taken those optimization engines, hardwired them so much into security layers and integration layers that modelers can't model. And that was the whole purpose of that, was to really put a demand planner on the stage and have us think hard about, we've missed the mark.
I loved it. That was a stroke of genius. And Allison was a brilliant in how she approached her time and her presentation. The Q&A was great. So that was a stroke of genius. Michal, I'm coming to you next on any thoughts you've got, but I want to share Alex's comment here that I really enjoyed. Alex, of course, with John Galt Solutions, one of our friends here. Alex said, quote, the demand planner is unfortunately many times treated like a ping pong ball, or even worse, a punching bag, end quote. How true. Michal, any thoughts when it comes to our dear planners?
Oh yeah, they definitely deserve a word of appreciation. I was recently with few of them studying their work, and I think we all miss what they are doing on the daily basis, really. And to your point, Laura, something went wrong along the way, because if you see that the planner 50% of his time spends between Excel, SAP, and Outlook by inserting a confirmation of PO date, something is wrong, right?
And 60% of their time is in meetings explaining what demand is.
Yeah.
And so my question is, why did we miss the mark? Why can we not democratize planning? And why can we not do a step change in business outcomes? And I think we've really got to think about this hard, because what we have is really substandard. And the lowest level of satisfaction of any employee in supply chain is the demand planner.
Is that true, Laura? Wow.
Yes.
I was not aware of that. I mean, I know there's struggle and frustration in several roles, but by far the demand planning function.
Right. In the last 3 surveys I've done on talent, the lowest level of satisfaction, and it's also the job that is really hard to fill right now, that's going up by 10 to 15% on an annual salary every year. And people have got all these crazy RFPs in the market trying to find demand planning solutions, but they're not building core competency in the team.
Gosh, there's so much to uncover here. I want to take a quick pulse around the 3 of y'all, and then Michal, we're coming to you for some supply chain poetry goodness. So get ready. But one thought that sticks out in my mind, both that came back to me during the conference, but it's an observation I've long held. Do y'all believe that planners beyond are not just underappreciated, but they are kind of put in a pigeonhole, and that's where leadership want them to stay? And it not only stymies the value from fully manifesting itself in an organization, but it stymies their career and where they can go from that planner. Is there any thoughts around that? And Laura, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the organization needs to plan, not the planner needs to plan. And because only 3% of the back office folks are planners, they create their own culture, and people have not built organizational career paths for planning, and they haven't thought organizationally how they improve planning as a core competency for the organization. And, I was working with a company and we implemented a great system. And the person that worked with me is like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. And the reason is, if I lead this effort, it'll stymie my career. And that gal is now a GM of a company because she bypassed that role that I thought would be exciting.
I love that. There's a little fear, a little deer in the headlights when you pose a question to Laura and she thinks about it for a second, and then to my relief, she says, absolutely. She agrees with me. I love that. Okay, really quickly, because I got a couple questions and then we're going to get Michal's masterpiece. Karin, your quick take on how we're approaching our planners.
Yeah, I see this. I see this often in the area of supply planning, in particular, because that depth and expertise in actually sourcing, procuring, or producing goods is something that can create an anchor, if you will, from a career growth perspective. On the demand side, I see those resources get scooped up into sales and customer organizations a little faster. So you do see some high churn in those roles for some of those reasons. But on the supply side, I've seen more happen where the supply planner or capacity planner or working with sourcing partners, they really get tied to those roles and might not have the flexibility in the organization that they would like from a career perspective.
Excellent point. I think we have an army of planners with us right here today, which is, hey, it's a beautiful thing, right? I love hearing the voices of kids enjoying themselves on a Friday afternoon. Michal, give us your quick take on the planning profession, leadership's approach, anything you're thinking along these lines.
Yeah, so my thinking is really going to Lora concept of efficient silos. So we are having them, right? We are having manufacturing, we are having sales, marketing, customer service. And to my feeling is that planner is the very last guy that is left there, that is trying to protect the flow and going through those walls and silos in order to get it done and adjust. Maybe that's the reason why it is so hard.
Excellent. I really wish we had a couple more hours to dive into just this one aspect of the discussion, because I think that the industry it needs to change dramatically. Lora mentioned that the last 10 years for procurement. Well, gosh, I think the planning profession, how they're treated there is in some cases the platform's burning. It's on fire. Really quick, you mentioned silos. I want to add, Greg and I had a plenty of time to chat over three days, 2.5 days. He said, quote, efficient silos are not only not the goal of supply chain, but they are the fatal flaw, end quote. I love that from Greg. Okay, I've got a couple of things here. I'm gonna pose this from Simon. Simon, hope this finds you well. It's been a little while. He says demand planning solutions' primary goal should be to make the demand planner happy. Do that and your plans will improve. Okay, I love that. Let's see here. Ron says, I could imagine the demand planner could be someone feeling shame or blamed without those team bonding relationships. So people are less likely to feel like scapegoats. Got to respect the different roles intertwined in a company's success. Culture matters. Well said there. Okay. Again, I wish we had lots more time. I feel like we're leaving a lot on the table there. But Michal, I want to make sure we come to you for your shining moment of what's going to give you a television deal. So you emailed us some feedback after, I think, the second day, because it was that culinary theme. We used pets the first day, food the second day, and then, of course, music the third day. So Michal, if you would, do us the honors of giving us your feedback.
Yep, sure. Let me put it on my screen so I can read, because I don't know it by heart.
Okay, not yet.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready
right.
too?
Yeah, this is going to be like Freebird for you. Everywhere cover bands go, oh, Freebird? Can you play Freebird? This is going to be the Michal masterpiece. So, all right, so lay it on us.
Okay. Only tiny fraction of restaurants are being awarded with Michelin stars. Similarly with supply chains to admire awards. If you are aiming to get there, you are shooting to the moon. You have to be badass. You will not make it only by optimizing your kitchen. Most efficient manufacturing is not contributing to the most effective supply chain. Technology will not get you there either, because having sous vide machine does not make you Thomas Keller. So stop thinking about Tower of Stupidity, focusing on transactions that occur in the walls of your ERP jail. The real battlefield is outside of it. Break the walls of your eating place, starting with the customer. Focus on its value. Map the process, synchronize it, and guard it with the right metrics like first part yield, schedule adherence, hands-free orders. Be close also to your suppliers, like best chefs that buy directly from farmers. When it comes to data, think about insights, that they are uncovering. Remember that science will never eliminate an art. Best meals are built on free ingredients only, but there is a secret sauce that provides unforgettable twist. Last but not least, don't get rid of salt and pepper. They are like spreadsheets, giving you ultimate control over the final taste. Remember though that too much of it is not healthy for you.
All right. So we had a blast when that came across the wire from Michal. Our team instantly said, "Man, we got a plaster. We need a poster of this because it brings a lot of supply chain leadership principles into something we all can relate to, which is of course food, right, and cooking." So, Laura, I know you got a kick out of this as well. What's from what Michal just shared? What's one of your favorite parts?
It's just brilliant, right? It the fact that he captured the supply chains to admire and the Michelin stars, right? I want everybody to put supply chains to admire that wins it, on their windows, on their doors, like the Michelin stars. That would be my goal. And I think the fact that he got the concept so well from the conference, I like the creativity.
I do too. And as he said, you got to be a badass. You got to be like Laura, right? You get to win and to drive true excellence. It takes real leadership. So, Michal, thank you. I know that took some time to kind of lay out and then, of course, shoot it to us. But, I think that's the 5th time we have incorporated that in some version of content here at Supply Chain Now, and very, very much so. Well done. Karin, though, what's your, from what Michal shared, what comes to mind for you?
Well, first of all, Michal, now that I know that you're a chef, it makes even more sense to me. So I really love how you incorporated that into the piece as well. I think it does capture supply chains to admire and the rigor that goes into that particular assessment. So, earlier today we were talking about some of these recognitions in the industry, but what Lora and the team at Supply Chain Insights have put together around supply chains to admire is different. It's a different type of analysis, and it offers some objectivity and rigor to the process. So equating it to those Michelin stars is pretty good way to think about it.
I love it. I love the salt and pepper as spreadsheets. That's a work of art. Okay. So, let's see here. I want to share this from, first off, Simon says he's been busy building fabulous next generation demand planning solutions. So congrats, that role. You're kicking butt. And Simon, that's wonderful to hear. Natalie says she's got so many thoughts back on the planning angle here, but it comes down to, she says, are you treating planners as entry-level positions or as a more mature position with more experience dealing with the organization? Great question there, Natalie. Okay. Karin, I know we want to, as much as we hate to move on from Michal's masterpiece, we want to pose a couple questions to Laura, right?
Yeah, I did have one. Laura, you said several times when you were on stage that you were really focused on elevating the conversation, but you also challenged us to unlearn, to relearn. And I really find sometimes, especially for those of us who have been in supply chain for decades, sometimes it's hard to step back from what you think you're an expert at in order to kind of open your mind and remain teachable. So maybe you can give us a couple of examples of that.
Well, there's actually a video that I'll drop in the chat about the reverse bicycle. And, there's a concept that everybody can ride a bike, right? You ride it first time and then you remember it. But when you change the reaction of the bicycle so that it's reversed, so when you turn the handlebars, you don't turn right, you turn left, people can't ride a bike anymore. And it's about, really making you think about unlearning. So for example, when we talked about the demand planner, everybody wants to talk about how good their engine is, but they don't want to talk about redefining work. So it isn't the planner that's planning, it's the organization that's planning. And, the paradigms that I think we're so caught up in are very hard for first generation pioneers to unlearn. And that's one of the reasons why my research and my writing is targeted to people like our friend from Corning, because it's easier for them to unlearn. And because, they haven't really been, so enmeshed in it for a decade, and it's easier for them to challenge. The tougher part is their leadership. And that's why I'm really trying to drive from the supply chains to admire why we need to unlearn. Because what's going to happen in these next phases of the pandemic is we're going to have ugly balance sheet reviews. And I hope every CFO and supply chain leader is held to the carpet by the investors about why we failed in this last half of the pandemic. And the reason is because our functional inside processes don't work. And it's because we have wrapped them around us like a blanket, investing 1.7% of revenue on the wrong stuff. And I really hope that that is the impetus that we can unlearn to help people like our friend from Corning to drive innovation. Because without it, we're stuck.
Wow. Excellent points there. Michal, do you want to add anything to that?
Whoa. Yeah.
Hey, 1 second, Michal, 1 second. Hey, Amanda and team, I'm just big thanks for what y'all do behind the scenes. Amanda, Jada, Clay, and Allie. I just emailed you some of the videos that came out of the summit. So if we could drop those links, those YouTube links in the chat, that'd be wonderful. Okay, so Michal, any additional comments there? I didn't mean to ask you a loaded question, my friend.
Yeah, it's very difficult to unlearn, even for me, and I don't have that much experience in the industry, right? But what I can tell is that really opening your mind for people like Lora and contributing to the work that they've done and are sharing with us can really help. Because I've read Shaman Journal from 2020. I still have problems with thinking outside in, but at least it helps sometimes. Sometimes this light bulb is lightning on my head, and I can maybe I'm too focused on SAP jail. Okay, let's forget. Let's think differently. So be open for the resources that are out there, for the great influencers like Lora that are there, and also for you guys, for your podcast, for the content that you are delivering. I think we need to be open and really start to think differently.
Wonderful, Michal. Wonderful. There's a meme I was made aware of this morning, Karin, and I'm not gonna get it right, but our dear friend Joshua, who's not with us here, shared it with us. And basically, it's this meme that's making it circles globally, where this person's sitting in the house and it's burning down all around them, and he or she is sitting with a cup of coffee saying, "It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine." There's a little bit of supply chain analogy there, I think, somewhere. But nevertheless, all right. So we got, it's almost top of the hour or bottom of the hour, whatever. I always get that wrong too. Laura, we are dropping the episode, some of the summit content's been published. We're dropping those links in the comments. So folks, y'all check it out. 2 or 3 that we have pointed out here today, I want to call your attention to. We've got Daryl Edwards, who we touched on the front end of this conversation. Jane Kaiser, which we've touched on a couple times. We've got hers, and Allison Hatfield, which perhaps stole the show. I mean, Allison's was one of the best presentations around demand planning and that craft, really, that profession. Check that out. Your day will be better off if you do. And there's several others there we've got published, and y'all check those out. Okay. Man, too much to cover, too little time. Laura, let's make sure folks, presentations have been published. Of course, Supply Chains to Admire, Supply Chain Shaman, the sessions. There's a ton of help if folks will go looking for it. But how can folks either check that out or connect with you? What would you suggest there?
Well, I'm followed by 300,000 people on LinkedIn, and just like Michal reached out, just send me an email and I'll answer everyone I get. And we're also got our podcast going on first and generation supply chain career advice. And I know, Scott, you've followed those, because we're trying to help supply chain leaders of the next generation to push the envelope, ask key questions. We're publishing with ASCM the work we've done on open source outside-in processes, which is my hope that building those canonicals and publishing them will help to challenge the existing processes. And also, I just continue to go on by writing my blog each week and, trying to drive open research, because I think research should not be locked behind a paywall.
I agree with you so wholeheartedly. And of course, you mentioned ASCM. One of the things they announced, or at least they shared at the summit, was how they're a lot of the content, especially related to Project Zebra, is going to be open source for folks to learn from. And those kind of moves, talk about the associational space, that's what's going to push that space into the current and beyond, is really serve the industry more than rather than just its members. So I love that. And of course, we enjoyed hearing from Peter there throughout the 2.5 days. Laura, a lot of good stuff. We didn't talk about Project Zebra enough. We'll talk about that next time you join us. I really enjoyed what you shared here today. All right, Michal, as I mentioned, you're going to have Arista Records coming at you. You're going to have Hollywood coming for you. How can folks connect with you or your agent?
Okay, not yet agent, or maybe I will employ my wife.
Smart move.
We will
Smart
see.
move.
Yeah. But definitely you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So you know my name, you know how to pronounce it, just type it and I will connect with you. I'm very open to work, to exchange ideas.
Love that. Relationships still matter, especially in this day and age. Yes, digital relationships. Look at the wonderful supply chain nourishment right here that came from a connection on social. So love that, Michal. Well, Laura, I'll give you, before we bid you both adieu. I really appreciate you joining us here today. Any last thought, last challenge, you name it, last thought around the 2021 Supply Chain Insights Global Summit?
Well, Scott, I appreciate the partnership for you to make it real for the VFAM family. It was touch and go. All my speakers didn't want to commit. The hotel didn't want to commit. People didn't want to commit. As you know, it was really tough to get that agenda. Daryl Edwards did not actually confirm until the Wednesday before. So I felt like I was chasing cats. But, you worked with us and you gave a great experience to the people online. And that's the kind of experience I want people to have. Fun, energetic, let's challenge the system, let's learn, and let's raise the voice together. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Our team appreciates that. You talk about how difficult it was. You were committed. You were absolutely committed. We were committed. And while sure, there's all kind of things outside of our control, and there's always room for improvement, right? A lot of it worked, and that's testimony to some of the feedback that we've all gotten, and we look forward to building on that and realizing some of those opportunities. So big thanks if you tuned in, like Michal. Big thanks for you and all the VFAM members that tuned in, folks. As you could tell, you don't want to miss 2022. Laura, you've already got a date, September 2022. How can folks find out about that already?
We've already updated the website and we put the visual facilitation, and we're going to be at the Westin Dulles. And it's just convenient to fly into Dulles and go right over to the Westin. And we'll do an event at the Smithsonian Air Museum because we want our ideas to take flight.
Oh,
have a good one.
That.
Look at that.
Thank you, Laura.
We're in marketing now.
Thank you so much, Lora Cecere. Thank you so much, Michal Garbacz. And y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Michal. Bye now.
Thank you, guys.
Bye now.
We had so much more we wanted to ask. I think I've got about 6 different pages. But it's so easy to dive deep on some of those critical topics, such as certainly the planning function and profession and the critical role it plays, and how we got to level those folks more. So, Karin, I know we're right up against 1 o'clock, but really quick, your favorite thing you heard here today from either Laura, Michal, or our conversation.
I liked, well, obviously the whole conversation was interesting, and that's from somebody who was in most of the actual event as well. But I do like the fact that that the VFAM, the virtual participants, it was really different, and it did keep folks engaged in the conference material. We've all been, on day-long conferences or Zoom meetings, and it was just great to do what Lora mentioned, and that is to connect on a global basis. So we had folks in that VFAM that were from around the world, and it's wonderful to have the opportunity to collaborate and learn from folks that you might not ever get to see face to face. So, so that was a pretty good takeaway, and I loved that Lora introduced me that she had met him initially in the virtual world as well.
Excellent point. Okay, I'm gonna surprise you with one more slide. This is all Rex here, and Rex was also the star of the show. We were talking day one, to make it fun, right? We had plenty of heavy hitting that made our brains hurt, rightfully so. But over 3 days. But our fun theme number one on the first day was pets. The second day was foods. The third day was music. We had a ton of fun with that. So I'll have to save the rest of the slides for a later time. Hey, really quick, Laura and team, Amanda, Jada, Clay, Allie, if we can drop that video link into the comments really quick, and that'd be a good video to teach unlearning.
Yes.
Hey, James Malley is here. Hello, James. Folks, if you hadn't checked out James and Packard, you need to. He joined us on the Buzz on Monday, which feels like, frankly, Karin, it feels like
Weeks
3 months ago. Yeah. But we also just published the replay today, so y'all check that out as well. James, great to see you, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Okay, so we got the video to teach unlearning there in the comments. Y'all check that out. Be sure to connect with Laura, follow Laura, whatever LinkedIn is allowing these days. Check out her site where a ton of resources. Again, open source. Karin, that's a beautiful thing, right? Open source, so the industry and the individuals and leaders amongst it can get better, right?
Yep, absolutely. And it's real research. I mean, there's good quantifiable research that's happening there as well. And then you get the benefit of Laura's kind of decades in different supply chain roles, and as an industry analyst, pulling that together and giving some color commentary to it, and then working with a number of folks in supply chain disciplines to talk about what you do with that, how do you apply it, and what's next in the industry. And like the event focused on supply chain 2030.
That's right. Okay, folks, that's going to be a wrap today. Big thanks to Laura and to Michal for joining us. Big thanks, Karin. It's been a blast to co-host today's session with you. Thanks for your partnership on the summit itself. Big thanks, of course, to Amanda, Jada, Clay, and Allie, all behind the scenes. Folks, in the comments, y'all kept it coming. I couldn't get to all of them. Thanks so much for that. Y'all check out the links we dropped in there. Be sure to check out Tech Talk, Digital Supply Chain Podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. While you're there, hey, Supply Chain Now, top 1%. Let's go. Folks, y'all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weather. Hopefully you got nice Metro Atlanta weather this weekend like we do here. Thanks for tuning in. Get out there and make a difference. Take the future in your hands and do something with it. On that note, on behalf of our entire team here, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed, and we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.